This is StoryRobot. Welcome to r/Prorevenge. Our first story of today is, Teacher Verbally Abused Suicidal Classmate. Now everyone knows. This was back in high school when I was 17. I'm currently 20. I was in a class for forensics, and this teacher was notorious for making fun of students. I'll call her Beep Teacher. To put in perspective how much I hate her, I got a pet cockroach and named it after her. In this class, she would have students take attendance by lining up and answering a question at her desk before going to sit down. This is important for later. It started with things such as making fun of students who weren't in class to hear, poking fun at how they looked, their grades, their clothes, etc. Things slowly escalated as the year progressed to where she would mock my voice in front of everyone whenever I spoke. I also have a very growly voice because I used to get recurring scarlet fever for years, which permanently damaged my vocal cords. Said transgender people were a burden, we had a trans boy in the class, that depression wasn't real, etc. At first, it was fine. It's not like she was saying anything I've never heard before from my shitty classmates about each other. But then comes in my classmate, who I'll call Small. Because she's small. Small was a quiet and very sweet girl. She was funny and always nice to everyone. But she had really bad depression and anorexia. And she would be bullied a lot because her parents weren't the best. She often came to class smelling of her dad's chain smoking and an old hand-me-down clothes. Because Beep Teacher would only encourage the bullying, Small eventually started cutting and wearing hoodies all the time to hide the cuts. But everyone knew. It got to the point where two people would take advantage of her poor family and pay her to scratch words on her leg or arm in class with a safety pin. Beep Teacher did beep all. And trust me, she knew. Fast forward a few weeks, and we all line up as usual. The question was, what's your favorite type of music? Me and Small come up. I answer and am heading to my seat when Small quietly goes, I don't know. I don't really have one. To which, and I kid you the beep not. Beep Teacher goes full volume, with a smile on her face, well, what kind of music doesn't make you want to slit your wrists? At this point the entire class goes dead silent. She had gone too far. And Small immediately runs out of the class. Everyone is too shocked to know what to really do. So we just move on with class. I still wish I had gone to check on her. After that, I just couldn't stand Beep Teacher. I couldn't stand her existence. I couldn't stand looking at her smiling beeping face. I wanted to rip that smile off. Every time she breathed I wanted to strangle her. I was done with this. I began secretly recording every time she made fun of us. I would record entire classes and crop out what I needed. And then, one tiring month later, I emailed them all straight to the principal. Close to half an hour of this Beep making fun of everyone, making suicide jokes, etc. I fumed about how inappropriate and unacceptable this was. And I demanded justice. And holy Beep, justice I got. Beep Teacher didn't show up for a few days. When she came back, she had such a dead look in her eyes. Finally, no more of that goddamn smile. The principal calls us all together. And in front of everyone, her husband, the students, and staff, she was forced to formally apologize for making fun of a beeping suicidal 16-year-old. The look on her husband's face told me all I wanted. After this, I only ever needed to see her smoking alone and hated at the liquor store. The smile never came back. I never told anyone what I did. But everyone just knew. And a sense of overwhelming relief was very much welcomed in the class. Small started going to therapy and we became pretty good friends. She got the help she needed, she moved out of her family's home with her sister, and she developed healthier coping mechanisms. Suicide is not a joke. And anyone who makes fun of someone even remotely entertaining the idea of suicide. This is what you deserve. To lose your job, lose your friends, lose your reputation, lose your husband, and a kid to name a beeping cockroach after you. And for those of you in middle school or high school dealing with bullying, a bad home life, or mental health problems, you can do this. Our second and last story of today is, I got fired and went after the boss, his money, his hotel and his marriage. Back when I still was in university, I used to work for a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel very urgently needed new personnel. So I cut a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts, so I could visit my courses and exams. Speaking some extra foreign languages, I also got a little bonus each month on top. The old owner was a great guy. He owned multiple hotels, so I rarely saw him. But when he was in the house he always made a point to have drinks with the staff, chat with us, and if we were free he even invited those of the front desk to fancy restaurants who were not on shift. Fast forward. I had worked in the hotel for a few years now and was nearing the completion of my studies. So it wouldn't have been an eternity until I had to quit anyway. As I was of course more interested to work in my field of study. As part of my deal with the old owner I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to visit my courses at university during the day. To make up for my privileges, I had picked up the habit of doing some extra work in the dead of night other shifts would normally have to do, when I on contrast could have sat around and stared at the walls. People were grateful for the help in the beginning, and we became a rather tight-knit group. But over time people rotated in and out. When the old owner retired and his beeple of a son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much. I never found out the exact reason for that one. I was at that point nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical tasks to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the Manger's network account. One night while doing my lists, I logged into the Manger's account and email to do my job. Then I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know it is not nice to snoop, but of course, I read it. Turns out the new owner wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with the bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner hate me. No idea if he had other reasons. Because to be honest, these seem very weak to me. But he couldn't fire me without cause. On top of that, I would be owed severance if fired. And generally, there were not enough bodies in the shift rotation without me. Though the new owner didn't seem to understand that point as the emails told me. I looked for more email concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager and the new owner. I was of course not CC'd as I was the hated topic. The employees didn't like me hogging the night shifts. Because those paid better and for every night you worked you got paid the night bonus. The manager was the only one rather neutral on the matter and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to make a hostile work environment so I would quit of my own volition. I was furious. I thought about a variety of reactions. From egging their cars to burning down the hotel. But I settled on a less crazy method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 a.m. asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer. So for sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I made photos, printed them out, made copies and filmed the whole deal just to be sure. My uncle told me to sit tight and see if things got worse, or if it was just bluster. And so I gave it a few days. And things did take a turn. Snide remarks about my looks, clothing and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the colleagues were just as professional as before. But the conspirators always left extra work for me or Ponda beat duties they normally had to do on me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work, just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One guy even started to threaten me with violence. But I kept clenching my butt cheeks. I would not give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I am a big boy after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work I was not obligated to do. Which in the end was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day my uncle with bundled proof of the email and all documented harassment by my colleagues served the hotel my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly the manager went white as a sheet when he realized where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive vacation in France to deal with this. Their counsel advised them to settle. So I accepted my severance and a hefty bonus on top. Enough money to last me until the end of university without work. But that was not all my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money. But in the next step, I went after the hotel. I had used all the spare time during night shifts alone, to document every last violation of city, county, district, state and federal law I could find. That went from minor things like some harmless mold under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law, on the ground of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years back. So every renovation or change in floor plans needs to be signed off on by a committee. Which can take ages. There is also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for keeping the building intact as is. So with my uncle his help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month everything from health, building code, fire safety to the finance and work police crawled over the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors that shut the place down. The new owner had done substantial renovations to the top floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. So the new owner had to pay back the grant, pay fines for unauthorized alterations to the building, endangering his guests, because something wasn't built right according to fire code and had to close down shop until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on all the violations accumulated, which tanked the business once it had reopened, as the newspaper article had led to horrible reviews. In the end, to afford all the fines, repayments and building costs the new owner sold the hotel. As the cherry on top, all the beepholes who had tried to harass me out lost their job. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too, but didn't do anything to stand up for me or help me either. So I don't feel too much remorse. And the revenge cherry on top was that the new owner, whenever he was in town, used to bring home escorts. Which in my country is not illegal. But he was married. It took some doing to get that information to the new owner, his wife. But one of my former colleagues, who had quit before this had all happened, had her email. So I let her know what the new owner was up to when he was out of town. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will. Thank you for watching. Error. Problem detected. Not enough subscribers. Please subscribe, like and comment.